Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm just getting ready to share one of the best videos I've got for going live, and getting where you want to go sometimes is not easy. All right. Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. And today I have quite the special coming for you. And let me Eric, thank you for joining us. I'm trying an experiment, and I think I'm going to have to put on my headphones and trying to do a live broadcast, and I'm hearing an echo effect from my end. I don't know if you're hearing it.
I can hear it on your mic, but it's not echoing. I don't hear it.
Let me just end that experiment. All right. Sometimes experiments just don't work.
What were you doing? Or you were trying to broadcast another?
Yeah, I was trying to broadcast through my phone, but I'm just going to upload it later. So much for that idea. All right. Today I have with me Brad Johnson. I'm going to be sharing an interview that I did earlier this week about and I'm excited about this because my last interview with Brad Johnson, who's the former station chief of the CIA, and he is the president of American Intelligence Reform. Last time he was on, he predicted Russia taking Ukraine. That was back in May. So wait till you hear what he has to say today. I had some very specific questions to get into, and I think you'll really be surprised. And then after that, I have a bunch of other things that I'm going to talk about, things that are being hidden. And some of this has to do with the Muslim Brotherhood. Some of this has to do with issues that Brad brings up. And I think these things, and some of this is news I just got today, that I think some of these things I think will just blow your mind. This is a Christian news show, so we're going to share with you the Christian perspective, and Brad Johnson is one of those Christians. So let me get into it. This is a Christian news show, I'm going to start with the Word of God. Today I'm reading from 2 Samuel 11, 2-5. And it came to pass in the evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. From the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness. And she returned unto her house, and the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. The joy of being top dog is that there is no one to tell you no but God himself. The biggest danger of being top dog is that there is no one to tell you no but God himself. King David was up late at night, wandering in his castle for some reason, goes out upon his roof and looks out onto Jerusalem. Matthew Henry, the great commentator, says that there he had dozed away that afternoon in idleness, which he should have spent in some exercise for his own improvement or the good of others. He used to pray not only morning and evening, but at noon. In the day of his trouble, it is feared he had this noon omitted to do so. Idleness gives great advantage to the tempter. Standing waters gather filth. The bed of sloth often proves the bed of lust. This sin was not something King David woke up and just did. It came as a result of temptation winning and his moving away from the things of God. Yesterday, this is, if you read the devotional, you'll see I do these one each day. But we read in the previous passage that King David should have been with his men in battle. He had been comfortable and enjoyed the luxuries of being king. Even after peeping on her private bath, he continued to pursue that which was not right. He sent men to learn who she was. Even learning that she was married should have stopped things cold, but David goes deeper into this sin, dragging his men who follow his orders because they see him as a man after God's own heart. He tells them to bring her to him. This passage is very revealing. It does not state that David raped her, but that they were both knowingly engaging in an act of adultery, and that the sin cannot be hidden since a child is made. Dear Lord Jesus, you tell us to pray for those over us. Lord, keep my pastor's eyes on you. Lord, do that for all of us. Keep our pastor's eyes on you. Lord, guard their hearts. Help them to live life as you wish so that they can be an example to us. Lord, guard the hearts and minds of those who are our bosses, our government representatives, and more so, that they can do that which is right. Keep them from corruption. Set their hearts and minds on honoring you. Lord, I am not perfect. I am far from that. Only you are. Lord, keep us in your word. Guard us. Guard our eyes. Keep us from lustful desires. Guard our tongues from saying things we shouldn't. Lord, pray for that person who is honest enough to keep me accountable to you also. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, before I play this interview, I want to once again tell you about Brad Johnson. I had the opportunity to meet with him in person a few times before the lockdown. He's one man I'm so glad is on our side as a former station chief of the CIA. He grasps the big pictures in ways most of us do not. In his role today as president of American Intelligence Reform, he's attempting to change the way intelligence work is done so we can once again be the best in the intelligence collection game. Now, I'm going to play this interview, and I think it will simply blow your mind. And here we go. Just pulling up the video. Okay. Welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Brad Johnson is a former station chief of the CIA. He's the head of Americans for Intelligence Reform, and he's a man with many answers when it comes to issues on the world. And so today I've asked him to speak to us about what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, and he has more answers than I can offer. So, Brad, please tell us what your take on what's happening with Russia and Ukraine.
Sure. Of course, it's very busy, but I'll start by saying I follow the reporting out there too, just on the news and different sources. I follow the reporting coming out of Russia, things like that. So I'm getting kind of the overview at the 30,000 foot level too of kind of what everybody's doing about this. The European and American reporting, Canada too, is just completely bizarre. I mean, they're just in a panic and a frenzy, and it's almost exclusively BS. There's there's very few things within that body of reporting that are actually accurate. Even when they take facts, something that's demonstrably true, where they see a convoy of trucks on the road or something, they're reporting about what it all means and all this sort of stuff. And it tends to be just crazy hype. Now, much of that is being done because of money. You know, it's the old thing about always follow the money. And how do news agencies and newspapers and all those people and, you know, television news, how do they make their money? And it's by having viewers. So if they can hype everything here, bring up the number of viewers, they then can charge advertisers more money. So this is, a lot of it is making money. And that's why you have this feeding frenzy on the press in part. I believe there's another half to that, which I'll get to later. But as to Ukraine, the thing that really pops up to my attention that everybody's doing is, even Fox News and Fox Business, is this question of is Putin insane? And that is insane, because Putin is not insane. He's just he's a guy that's perfectly sane. He just, his perspective is completely different. He views the Crimea and in that matter, Ukraine, as essentially always having been Russian. And there's historical precedent for it. I mean, there's reasons why he thinks that, but also there's, you know, they need the Crimea, for example, for the warm water port. For Russia to be able to project a navy around the world, they need that warm water port from the Black Sea, where they go through the Bosphorus, out into the Mediterranean, and then out into the Atlantic and the rest of the oceans of the world. So that the northern fleet, if you will, those ports in the north all freeze over for winter. So are they a 6 months of the year Navy power? No, they want to be all year round Navy power. It's basic stuff. And not to mention the commerce. Huge billions of dollars of commerce go through all those warm water ports as well into Russia. So, I mean, basic economic need, military might, historical precedent, for every reason out there that you can come up with, Putin, honest to God, believes that stuff is all his. And if you look back, he's just been saying the same thing for decades. There's no differences or wild swings or any of that sort of stuff. He's been very consistent. Now, what the press is out there saying, oh, well, former ambassador to Russia, so-and-so, and former Secretary of State, and former this guy, former that guy, they all met with Putin, you know, 8 times. They all say he's vastly different now. You know, what a load of hooey. I mean, just hooey. This guy, yes, okay. If you're a dictator for 20 years, okay, yeah, your ego grows to be the size of Cincinnati, so your personality does change because you've got absolute power in a country. So yes, his personality's changed a bit. His ego's bigger. Yes, all that's true, but that has nothing to do with insanity. A big ego does not equal insanity. And yet they're drawing on these things, like showing how big his ego is, saying, oh, he's crazy, he's unbalanced, all this stuff he's doing is nutsoid. None of it is. It's all very straightforward. Putin views that part of Ukraine, well, he views it all as his, but he only wants that part of Ukraine that he's already got. And so what he wants to do is make sure that he keeps it. So he annexed it in 2014 because he wanted it and needs it, and Ukraine was drawing away from Russia with all of this, so he stepped in. He's always said the same stuff before that, after that, and now. And so what he did now was bring in a couple 100,000 troops and a lot of equipment, basically surrounded this part of Ukraine, because the Ukraine army was making inroads against them. And in the Donbass region and so, they were having quite a little bit of success. So that put in danger his hold on these areas. And that's what he has always said. He's not going to accept that, always. And, you know, he's always said he doesn't want NATO involved, and this is his, and it's part of Russia, and traditionally part of Russia. And, you know, it's the same line in the sand that's been there forever with Putin. And so what did he do? He brought all these troops up there, and he did a preemptory strike. He, you know, took those first 2 days, bombed the crap out of everything the Ukrainians were doing, and what did we do? Nothing. Biden came out and said, well, you know, we're going to put sanctions on these 2 Russian banks. Sanctions on 2 Russian banks. That's nothing. That's not even a slap on the wrist. That's just like a little breeze blew by and, you happen to feel it in your hair. I mean, that's it. And Putin's background is mine. We're both former intelligence agency guys. I look at that and I laugh. What do you think Putin's doing? He's like, God, they're not doing anything. So what happens to a guy like Putin who has absolute control and he views all this stuff as his? In his mind, he's the good guy. The Ukrainians are the bad guys because they're pushing against this stuff that's Russia's. Yes. So they're the bad guys. They're the terrorists, not him. And that's his view. And now we may disagree with it, but if you're truly sane, you have to understand and admit that that is his perspective and he believes it. So, you got to understand that to even get in the discussion, which is where the press is all completely wrong. All of them are wrong. None of them just look at the facts as they are, and this is so clear and so true that there isn't really a lot of room for another opinion on this because Putin's been so consistent for 10, 15 years at a minimum on all this stuff. So he sets up this.
Yeah, we called this last year in last May. I mean,
yes,
you said it. Yeah. He was going to invade, and I've heard people call Biden Biden for a reason, I think, because this could be where Obama said, I'm going to do more, after that election, that hot mic moment. And this could be that moment.
But there's one thing I want to point out on this. Everybody's saying, Putin's crazy. Putin's crazy. He's insane. He's unbalanced. Okay, looking at the situation, there is somebody involved in this that's unbalanced, but it's Biden, not Putin. Biden has vascular dementia. He is mentally rotting before our eyes. You can look back 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and you see the decline in this man. Yeah. Yes, there is some mental imbalance out there, but it's vascular dementia. He had a series of small strokes. It ruined part of his brain. I don't gloat over that. I'm not suggesting this is a wonderful thing. I don't wish that on anybody, even Biden, who I don't like or respect. I don't wish that on anybody because it's this slow mental rotting process that you're aware of as you're dying of this thing. So I don't wish it upon him. But on the other hand, you got to admit the fact that it exists. And so realistically, there's a problem with this guy because he's got dementia. So, Putin then takes these 2 days. He gets this little tiny mild slap on the wrist. So what does he do? He does what anybody would do under those circumstances. Okay, I'm going to take it to the next level. So the next level is he starts doing all these sorties, establishes immediate countrywide air domination, complete control of the skies. He starts moving a few people in, doing certain things. And what is the next stage? The next stage is take out Ukrainian leadership because first it's destroy the enemy's ability to fight back, which he did in those first 2 days. Nothing happened. You take it to the next stage. The next stage is eliminate leadership. So what did he do? He started sending in some of his kind of special operations troops. They were kind of a Spetsnaz sort of group out of some of the Muslim areas that he controls. And those guys are the scumbags of the scumbags. And so they're coming in and they're perfectly happy to track down and kill Christians. It's all part of how they view the world. So the Ukrainians are Christian Orthodox. And so these are the perfect guys to send in. They're the dirty players, the scumbags that he has in his military. And so he sends those guys in. And guess what he did? He copied what our military did going into Iraq. And they had that deck of cards with the pictures of everybody to go get. There was Saddam Hussein, who was the, ace of spades or something like that. And Chemical Ali and all these guys that they wanted to kill or capture, they had on that deck of cards. So supposedly Putin did the same thing and has this deck of cards he gave to those guys, which is of all the Ukrainian leadership. So that's stage 2. The next couple of days, we're hunting down those guys, trying to eliminate them. Because what? Because his goal then is to establish a more friendly pro-Russian government in Ukraine instead of these guys who are trying to fight back. So that basically went unchallenged. Nobody's done anything against that. I mean, Europe is in disarray. They can't agree on anything. I mean, they're just now, after a week of this stuff, just now starting to form some sort of of coalition resistance to what Russia's doing, and it's trying to do sanctions, some real sanctions, and they're allowing munitions to be moved finally through Germany, who blocked it up until just the last 2 days. And so, with Europe in disarray and the United States emasculated because of having a president who's got vascular dementia, this has just left them in the driver's seat. They're just doing whatever they want. And so they just keep taking it to the next stage, the next stage, the next stage, until somebody makes them stop. You look back at Hitler and any other tin-pot dictator who's ever been around, that's how they all are. They just keep going until somebody stops them. And that's what Putin's doing. He's going until somebody stops him. Now, when does Europe step in? I don't know. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention before we go on to too much else is the other half of why the press is doing what they're doing. I think Biden calculated. I mean, any idiot knows that Biden's in real serious political trouble. He's upside down on everything. His approval numbers.
Biden, or would you say his handlers?
Yes, his handlers are aware. He may not be aware, but his handlers are aware. So his approval numbers are under 40%. He's in the 30s somewhere, which is just awful. I mean, really bad approval numbers. We have got off-year elections coming up here in November. So it looks like, unless something major happens, the Republicans are really going to give the Democrats a shellacking. And I mean a serious shellacking. And it looks like some of the Rhino Republicans are also going to get their ass kicked in the primaries. So this looks like a real big win for conservatives lining up. We'll see, not for Republicans, but for conservatives. Republicans also, but conservatives first, Republicans second, are lined up to win and win big. So what is Biden doing? How does Biden view this? And it's the old adage that the socialists always have, and Biden's a socialist, just like all those guys on the left now, the progressives. And it's never let a crisis go to waste. So that was their plan from the beginning. They were always lining this up. There's been negotiations going on with Putin since the very beginning. And it's so that at the end, they can declare some sort of peace treaty, ceasefire, something on paper that everybody will sign. And what it does, what Putin's going to get out of this is it goes back to the status quo that he had before this all started. And that is the Crimea and Donbass, those regions are all his. He's going to leave Russians there to be the border guards for those regions, and he'll keep it. That's what he's been after all along, is to keep what he already has. And Biden is then at some point going to sign this agreement with him. And then because of all this hype in the press, what's he going to do? He's going to say, I saved the world from World War III. I am the greatest hero since Neville Chamberlain. Peace in our time, because he's got about that much going on upstairs.
And he would say Chamberlain at the brain capacity he has now.
Yes, exactly. So this is what his plan has been all along. The problem with his plan is he screwed it up. And what he was saying all along, and the vice president said all along, and the Democrats, senior Democrats in the party were saying all along, is if Russia does this, we are going to kick their butt from here to Sunday with these sanctions. But they didn't. They didn't do any sanctions. Those two things against the Russian banks, I mean, okay, you can count it, but not really. It's nothing effective. It's certainly nothing like they said they were going to do. So instead of at least doing what they said that they were going to do, which was going to be already completely ineffective, they did almost nothing. So it was the opposite of ineffective. It encouraged Putin to go forward. So that was Biden's miscalculation, which, like everything in this universe, anything he touches, he screws up. And this is one more example. So it's still moving forward, though, with this way. This is still Biden's plan. And what he's going to do is try to get this, I think they're starting to scramble now, trying to get Europe and everybody in agreement to do something, anything, to stop Putin from continuing to go forward. And the level of the concessions that they're going to be willing to do are going up and up and up because they keep screwing up this situation. So the way this is going to end up, I'm telling you right now, is it's going to be full concessions to Putin to keep everything that he's wanted from the very beginning, which is what he already had with the Donbass regions and Crimea and all of that. And then he'll put the border guards in, and he'll probably demand recognition of these places, which that's probably the item that's holding up negotiations right now, is will the United States and Europe recognize these breakaway regions of Ukraine as independent countries? Because that's going to be one of his demands. I think that's the catching point. I think that's where it stands right now, secretly behind the scenes, that's what they're arguing over. As soon as they come to agreement on that, as soon as Biden caves and drops trowel, then we'll have this signed treaty, and Biden can take his victory lap saying he saved us from World War III. That's how this is going to play out.
Wow, I'm looking at some of the stuff you're saying. I'm thinking of wow, they had one of the things I mentioned earlier. I was listening to someone talk about Turkey being a key element in this, and I have serious reservations about anybody who wants to involve Turkey, but you had some thoughts on Turkey's involvement, and I thought that was quite kind of important. Could you share that?
Sure. Now, I agree with you that Turkey isn't really a player in Ukraine per se. They have sent a few troops to Ukraine. They make noises about supporting Ukraine. There is a small ethnic region of Turks in Ukraine, and Turkey is using that the same way the Russians use all the Russians in Crimea. Turkey is using this Turkic population in Ukraine with the same idea, go in and take a piece of that territory as their own. So that's what Turkey's after. So they've always been kind of minor, nibbling on the edges of this issue sort of player, not an important player. But that's why they're doing what they're doing. It's ambitions on the part of Erdogan, the Turkish president, to recreate the Ottoman Empire. So gobbling up little places anywhere he can get his hands on is what he's after, just have more under his control. And then he can claim things off the ocean and mineral rights and all those sorts of things. So that's what he's after. But that's limited. It's in this war, they don't matter. But what they have done that is interesting and a danger is Turkey has said, because Russia is at war with Ukraine, because of what's going on, Turkey has defined that specifically as a war. And under the treaties and understandings of international waters and all of these things, they're saying, well, it's a hostile force, at war. Therefore, we're going to close the Bosphorus to the Russian Navy, not their commercial shipping, but their Navy, because they're on a war status. Now, that's very, very important. Just let me briefly say why. And that is that in the Crimea, they have huge naval ports, Sevastopol, commercial and Navy, and a lot of military bases. There's something like 52 or 3 Russian military bases in the Crimea. It is a huge place for them. The reasons in part are because it's warm there. They can have year-round activities. So that is a big deal. The Russian Navy can get out from the Black Sea, through the Bosphorus, into the Mediterranean Sea, and from there the Atlantic and the rest of the world's oceans. So it is the only way that they are a world Navy power is through that Bosphorus. Now that Bosphorus goes right by, it's basically through the middle of Turkey, and it's a very narrow strait that goes through Turkey. So they control both banks. Now it's open international waters, but basically, you can see back and forth across the strait. It's something that guns on either side would have complete control of who's going through the Bosphorus. So what they've said then is that that the Bosphorus is now closed to the Russian Navy. Now, those are only words. It doesn't mean they've actually done it, but that's what they're saying. So now they really only have one way to enforce not allowing the Russian Navy to go through there, and that's to fire on them in some way. They have to take some sort of action to do it. They have to block them somehow, take some sort of hostile action. Now, what the Russian Navy has said, and this is long-standing, Turkey has threatened this before. So what they've said is, anyone fires on us or does any hostile act, we're firing back. Yeah, okay, just go figure. And so that's where it stands. They've said they're going to block it to the Navy, and the Russians said, whatever you do to us, we're going to fire back on you. Here's the danger. What if that's all true? What if they actually do close the Bosphorus to the Russian Navy? The Russian Navy is going to test it. They're going to send ships through there, and they need that. So when they send ships through there, if the Turks take action, that means suddenly we have a shooting war between a NATO country of Turkey and a hostile country of Russia who's already at kind of a war with Ukraine. So what happens? Does NATO, I think it's Article 5 that requires NATO countries to come to the aid of the other countries, whichever one it is. one of the articles demands it, Article 1, Article 5, it demands that they come in and fight with that NATO country against a non-NATO country that in essence is attacking them. That would be the way it's painted, no matter who shoots first. So what happens then? Does NATO then suddenly go to war with Russia? And if they do, I mean, oh my God, that is a serious problem. Now, my personal opinion is that Erdogan's not going to fire on Russian Navy, that this is a threat more than it is a promise. And I don't think he's actually going to physically stop these ships from going through by firing on them. What other measure he might do, it's possible. I don't know, but that's just my guess based on past behavior of Erdogan. And he had, like I said, he's made this threat against Russia many times. So, but therein lies a fairly real danger. I don't think it's a high percentage shot of happening, but it is. If it does happen, then it's a big problem. I would add one other thing too that I view as maybe even a much, much larger problem than any of those things, and that is how much that all of this going on, how much our challenged president of the United States, Biden, how much this has encouraged China to attack Taiwan. And I think therein lies a larger danger in all of this. The largest long-term strategic threat to the United States is China. Second place is China. Third place is China. And everybody else is in fourth place and a distant fourth place. So this is a real problem. If they get so encouraged that they're going to actually go into Taiwan, Japan has said they're going to come in. You've got nuclear countries involved in this, multiple countries fighting. The chances of this exploding into a much larger theater of war is very serious. And Taiwan is not Ukraine. They have the capability to put up a much larger fight. It depends on the attack. China, of course, would try to be overwhelming immediately. But Taiwan has the wherewithal to last for a while, probably under attack. And if Japan comes to their aid, then can the United States avoid it? The U.S. Navy is going to want to go in. Biden would have to stop them. So it's a real danger out there. If they go in and take Taiwan, that China is already doing a lot of very aggressive things all over the South Pacific Ocean and making a lot of claims on things. And they're doing, they're going to all these islands that belong to other countries like the Philippines and Indonesia and Vietnam, and they're claiming them as their own. And they're sending in militia troops on fishing boats to measure the islands and see where to put the runway and how to build the base and how to support their navy and all of these things. They're going out and measuring to put in their new houses, now. So all of that, you would have then China be greatly encouraged to basically run roughshod over the entire Pacific Ocean, the southern part of it at any rate. And that's a real problem because the majority of the world's commerce goes by shipping, and it goes through those areas. So that would mean they claim that as national waters. They can stop any ship. They can claim taxes on those ships. They will control the world's commerce. So that's the seriousness of all of this with Taiwan and all of that has very, very, very far-reaching implications. And that is the real danger out of all of this, in my opinion, is encouraging China to try to take over the world.
I was concerned when I was first hearing about Russia going to Ukraine that part of what we talked about before is kind of, if Russia does this, will they have negotiated or made a deal with China? Go ahead and take Taiwan. We won't care at that same time. And they were meeting, if I remember correctly, they were meeting with China shortly before and just a little bit during the time that they went into the Ukraine. And that was my understanding.
Russia and China have, I forget, Putin was talking about it in some friendly cooperators agreement, or some sort of inane name that was unclear as to what the level of cooperation was between the countries. Yes. But it's something they've announced. So there's certainly behind the scenes exists a level of cooperation, and I don't know that has come out anywhere. Hopefully, U.S. intelligence knows, but You know, don't hold
We
your
are
breath,
at
my
that
friends.
hopeful stage, unfortunately. That's why we need your organization to change things.
Yeah, let me make my shameless plug. It's the website is intelreform.org. So this is something that that is near and dear to my heart to try and beef back up the intelligence. And I'll just say, you know, the CIA back in, you know, the old days, not that long ago, you know, we were able to go as an intelligence agency. We were able to go toe to toe with the rest of the world combined, all at the same time. I mean, really, we could go toe to toe with the entire frickin' world at the same time. And I'm even including our, you know, allies, you know, the Brits or whoever. You know, the U.S. by itself was enough to go toe to toe with everybody, and as an intelligence organization. And now, you know, we're a second-rate country. You know, we're behind a lot of other countries in our intelligence capabilities, and it's just that is so dangerous. It is just so dangerous. This is how people get killed and wars get started because you don't see it coming. And it's, you know, think about how World War II started with, from our perspective, with the attack on Pearl Harbor, is because we didn't know what was going on. And if you let that curtain close and we lose a lot of those capabilities, which is where it's headed right now, many of the capabilities that I trained in, that I have expertise in, personal expertise in, they don't teach that anymore. They don't train it anymore. And when my generation all dies, it's gone. Once it's gone, you have to relearn it all from scratch. And those lessons that were learned to get to that level of training that I had, and had a lot of practical experience in, to get back that, you have to learn those lessons, and you learn that through blood, sweat, and tears. And I mean all those literally. People have to die to learn those lessons because that's how you figure out you did it wrong. And it is a dangerous and sad state of affairs. But we've had the leftists in charge of all of these organizations for so long, and it's been they are so politically corrupt. They've been politicized and weaponized to be socialist organizations, and there are these nameless, faceless bureaucrats in charge of all of these things that, you know, nobody knows who they are, nobody elected them, but they're the ones making all these decisions, and they have got to go. And I'm hoping and praying that these elections coming up in November are going to be something that really kind of give us the opportunity to start to clean house. And then, of course, 2024, we need a president who's willing to do all that. And, you know, we'll see. Fingers crossed, light a candle at church.
That's we just kind of did that in church this Sunday. We're talking about what will the Christian pastors do there. And it's interesting. My biggest concern, I guess, again, is what do you think we need to do? I guess my last question would really be, what do you think we need to do to it's kind of hard to look at. What do you think we need to do to put things right as far as I know it's the elections. I think that's where we're at, but is there anything we can do today to make things right in this situation? I don't think sanctions are the way to go. That's my honest thought, because you know, I look at what, if they're going to have to be sanctions, they have to be severe, and that's not what our socialist close to commie friend will do, which is in the White House. So,
yeah, correct. I mean, what I think we need to do is we need a leader, you know, to do this. Yes. And we're lacking that with Biden, as I said. I mean, he's mentally feeble, and he was never very good at this sort of stuff to begin with. You can pretty much pick anything he's ever touched, and forgive the bad language, but it's all gone to shit. You know, everything he touches, it's the Midas touch in reverse. And so I don't think with who's there, we have a chance of making this work very well. Hopefully they'll muddle through. And I think that's why I think they're basically going to give in and give everything Putin wants to him. And by the way, I think they're laying it in place now, as I've said. They came in for, what was it, a $6 billion loan to Ukraine or something. So they throw $6 billion to Ukraine. Why? You know, because shut the frack up, and we're giving half your country away. Here's your $6 billion. Go pocket most of it and go home. And so, you know, everything is being laid in place to work out that way. So I think that's what's going to happen. They'll just give in to Putin. He gets what he wants. They pay off Ukraine, and Biden is going to take his, you know, fictitious victory lap and claim he saved us from World War III, where in reality he just gave up to Putin. But I mean, there are things that we could do. I think sanctions are a part of it. You know, sanctions by themselves are really tough to make work, but they could do a lot of things, like going after a lot of the trade that Russia does, and you know, literally actually close the Bosphorus. I mean, that would be a big deal to Russia. That would just absolutely shut down their economy. That would be a very dangerous tactic to take. But there are a lot of things that they could do in that nature through treaties and cutting it off, like cut off the Russian pipeline and let the Keystone pipeline come back on in the U.S. and having all the countries shut off any of imports from Russia, like the oil and gas, because those are pipelines that create a lot of money for Russia. So just turn off the spigot of money going into Russia completely. And it's not just sanctions, but it's like stopping commerce. And that's the way, those sorts of things, short of, you know, kind of a shooting war sort of scenario. I think those are the ways you do it. But
that's Reagan's way of doing things. He believed that the way to beat communism and socialism was with capitalism, and that's kind of what you're saying.
Yes, and Reagan was right. I mean, that's how he caved in the Soviet Union. Which, by the way, Trump picked up that game plan and was essentially beginning that against China. And it was having a lot of economic impact on China because they weren't able to steal so much. And as soon as Trump was out and Biden was in, it all went right back. Yes, and now China's stealing us all blind again. And that's
I'm very aware of that, because that's when my books have been sold through China and I get no commission.
Yes, and they never will, my friend. Yeah, they keep all that. So it is the way to fix the China problem without getting into a shooting war with them. But we need, I mean, if Trump comes back in 2024, and then on the heels of him, another like-minded person who understands that China is a huge national security threat, continues those policies for another 8 years after that, it'll crush China. I mean, it's not hard to do. We just have to have the political will to do it. And that's going to require a certain type of president followed on by another certain type of president, because now Trump's 2 terms, if he has them, are split. So you don't have that consistency of the 8 years in a row. And so now we need a one more Trump term followed by another president who has 2 terms, which that would give us, sorry, I had a call there. That would give us a consistent policy for 12 years, which would be enough to do in China economically and turn all of this back to normal, which, by the way, would create more social justice in the world and a better chance of lasting peace and better commerce, providing more wealth to more people than almost anything else we could do.
These are great ideas. One more time, Vlad, tell everybody how they can support you and your work, and so we can keep hearing good things about what's actually happening instead of what the media is telling us.
Yes, and thank you. My name is Brad Johnson. The organization is Americans for Intelligence Reform. The website is intelreform.org, and basically I am able to put a lot of stuff up there that, you know, I can't put on YouTube and things like that because they'll cancel my channel on there. So I try to get everything up on the website, so it's easy to go in and check. We usually post something pretty much every day, and of course this will be included on our website as well. And I do want to let anyone know who's interested. I mean, any contributions to the we're a nonprofit. Any contributions to the nonprofit, not one penny goes to me. I'm actually the biggest contributor to Americans for Intelligence Reform, and I don't reimburse myself for expenses. I don't take a penny of that money that goes in. It's all goes into making sure we can get the message out further. And there are people that get paid who do a lot of work for AIR that are really helpful, but none of it goes to me. Zero. I do this because it's my passion and belief, and I'm a true patriot and a conservative, constitutional conservative, Christian conservative, and this is my duty to do these things and try to move the ball a little bit further down the field to make the United States a safer place and more secure. And you know, we all want our kids and grandkids and great grandkids to be able to grow up in the great nation of the United States of America and have it be safe for them. And so that's my goal. That's what I'm working on. So just I want everybody to know that's the pledge, is I'm not going to take any money out of there. It all goes to further the cause and nothing more.
Well, thank you for joining us. God bless you, Brad, and we'll have to have you back soon. Thank you.
All right, Paul, anytime.
All right, I'm just going to push this stop button here.
Okay.
The joy of having a couple of screens, I have to find this. All right. The joy of doing things, taping ahead of time, is that you get to do the presentation. You get to share the knowledge, but the sad part is I can't always ask him the questions. If you have questions that you want to propose to him, I'm just going to suggest for now that you, for those of you who know me, go to my email. If you don't have my email, and my suggestion is to go to paulsutliff.com and write in your question to Brad there, and I will send it to him. You can also go to on Facebook. There is an Americans for Intelligence Reform. There are groups there that you can ask him questions there. He has a great team working for him. Now, I want to open the mic to anybody interested in, it's on the panel now. Any thoughts on what you heard? All right. Y'all here?
Hey, good to see you, Paul.
Hi.
Actually, it was a very good show. Now, you telling me this wasn't live, right?
Yeah, this was taped on Monday. So think about that. This was before the State of the Union, and Todd Bensman also I did last week, and they kind of predicted the changes that we were seeing. They're talking about pragmatists versus idealists. Yeah, it's in there.
You mean the state of disunion?
Yeah.
That was the joke. That really. I watched it the next day, and I was the mistakes that the man made. He called the Ukrainians Iranians.
I heard that. I can't watch a man with dementia give a State of the Union. I just think that I'm surprised anybody in Congress showed up, except for it being bad form not to.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I don't know. God help us if he stays there any longer.
That is a lot of what Brad is trying to say. We have a very, very weak government because it is divided in many ways. Under this president, there is no. Yeah, XYZ said, I'm this. I think that is really it. XYZ. That is why I did not watch the show. Pretty much, I could not watch a man with dementia make our country look worse than it is. I have to say, every time I listen to Brad, I'm surprised. I had thought originally, as I had said in this, in here, I thought originally that Taiwan was going to be taken at the same time the Ukraine was going to be taken. That's the way I took my last interview with
why did you not talk about Canada, especially with
Can you change that voice? It's just a little childish for a person who's supposed to be an adult. Okay. Because I can't understand you too. I look at the stuff he said, and I have I did a little bit more research, and I'll share that in a moment. This stuff is just so. I'm going to play one more video about Biden. Biden. I'm just going to call him Biden because I do not believe Biden's in charge. I'm mentioning the other person by putting that O in front. This inconsistency in policy. Jen Psaki got caught on this week. I think you all need to hear this one. And let me play this video. This will shock you as well. So he's talking about doing one thing while he's actually doing another. And this just proves how inconsistent How
the
inconsistent
stance of
are
the U.S. and buying Russian gas at this point? At this point, are we ready to pledge not to buy any more Russian gas?
Well, as you know, it's really. Let me give you actually kind of an update on this because it's. I think there's been a little confusion. One moment.
She is not the person.
So as it relates to Russian gas, U.S. government doesn't dictate where the U.S. market sells our own oil and gas products, nor where it acquires crude or refined products for domestic consumption. This is all up to the private sector, other than exceptions like countries under sanctions. So the U.S. refiners currently importing Russian products are largely legacy refinery operations tooled in Hawaii and Alaska for certain supplies because of geography, and imports to the Gulf, both of certain refined products and of crude, as refiners in the Gulf mix crude supplies to meet the needs of their particular refinery designs. There have been companies, obviously private sector companies, who have made decisions and announcements, and we certainly applaud that.
So, can you just explain, though, what you laid out at the beginning? Because I'm a little bit unclear. You just in layman's terms, we are not going to be making any policy from the U.S. government that would prohibit the sale or the purchase of Russian gas, then, because it's not something that we already do?
We haven't ruled out that, but I think what I wanted to convey is what is accurate about what happens now and how it currently works.
Wow. How vague is that?
Did you catch this? I mean, I'm sorry for muting you, Dr. Kafar. I just wanted to. I look at this is the inconsistency in policy. Oh, let's do sanctions, but let's not. I mean, one of the major reasons we are not energy independent is because Biden is paying Russia for oil today. Again, this is the part that I look at where, I mean, this is just the major inconsistencies. I have some serious issues here. I wanted to play that. I'm going to give us a little bit of a break. I'm going to play my my promo for the book and give us a few seconds of break here, and then I'm going to share with you some stuff that I just I've been spending a lot of time doing research on this discussion today, and what I've come up with as possible scary stuff. I'll share with you next, and I hope to God that my thoughts are way off and way wrong, but I don't know what jihad is affecting you whether you know it or not. This book, The Cancer of Civilization Jihad, has 20 chapters, and it starts out explaining what the hijra is, which is the word for migration. And from there, it goes on and it tells you many different things simply by asking questions, because questions are the way we learn. If you don't ask questions, you can't find the answers. Like I said, it starts out with questions. Chapter 2, are there irreconciled differences between the social norms of Western civilizations and those of Muslims in general? Islamic supremacy. That one's not a question. That's just it's a statement. Is there an Islamic social norm against telling the truth? Is slavery legal under Islamic social norms today? Are there racist social norms within Islamic beliefs? Is there an ethnic prejudice within Islam giving Arabs superiority? Are women considered less than equals in Islamic social norms? You keep hearing this social norms part of it every time, because the question is, are these normal behaviors? That's what social norms are, normal behaviors. Oh, this gets a lot more detailed. Are women considered less than equals? Are Muslim women required to wear the hijab? Do Islamic social norms make men see women as intellectual equals or sensual objects of pleasure? Is child marriage and forced marriage part of Islamic social norms? Is there an Islamic social norm requiring female genitalia mutilation? Is it an Islamic social norm that non-Muslim women are sexual prey for Muslim men? Is temporary marriage an Islamic social norm? In other words, prostitution in many ways. Is there a social norm in Islam that gives a husband the right to beat his wife? And this goes on Again, there's 20 chapters in this book. The question is, do you want to be informed? Do you want to see for yourself if the behaviors I'm talking about are really related to Islam? That's the real question. If this sounds interesting to you, please go to Amazon or smashwords.com and pick up your paperback or your ebook today. Thank you.
And get ready to get ticked off from reading it.
Are you muted, Paul? Looks like you've muted yourself.
Thank you. There are a lot of things that are still out there that we have barely touched. And I think Brad opened Pandora's box in many ways. So let me, I'm just going to share what my biggest issue with all the misinformation out there has been the lies that are being told. So I put this small presentation together because I think there's a lot of misinformation today. And I'm going to, is it flashing for everybody?
Yeah, click on the screen that it's on.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, I forgot about that. Thank you. So I've been looking at every time you turn on the news, it's saying Russia, Russia, Russia. It's all blaming Russia about the Ukraine issue. And in truth, the Ukrainian rebels appealed to, they actually started this by begging NATO to make a partnership with Ukraine. That's part of it. They also did some instigation, I believe, against the Russian military, which we are not being informed of. I don't have evidence of it, but I believe there was some push there. That is what I believe has to do with the reason why they came in certain places. And I've talked to many people about what I see as problematic, and as former military men, they keep saying that they'll agree with me on those issues. I have no background in the military, so I can only say so much, but the work that I have done in my research and little bit of research and intelligence makes me think. So if you're hearing the same story over and over and over again, this is the thing I have to say. They're hiding something from you. It doesn't matter if they're conservatives. It doesn't matter if they're liberals. If you hear that same story, something is wrong and something's being hidden from you. So here's where I start. Brad Johnson mentioned, and I think this is extremely important, Turkey could start World War III. Erdogan is as much a dictator, if not twice the dictator that Putin is. Erdogan is dangerous. He is basically viewed as the head of the Muslim Brotherhood today by most American Muslim Brotherhood members. We know this for various reasons. So I want you to think about the influence this man has. Should he decide to fire on Russia and Russia return fire, the United States is now forced into war. None of us wants to go back to fighting another war that I can see in America. We don't want to be there. So here's where I'm going with this. I got this article. I'm going to enlarge this so everybody can see it. All right, get right back to you. All right. So Islamophobia fueled by Erdogan and Muslim Brotherhood. Look at the date on this, March 23rd, 2019, by Dr. Ume Abdullah Khan al-Hindi. This comes from millchronicle.com, which I thought was interesting. It's, again, you look at this this is a March 23rd, 2019. Turkish President Erdogan never fails to try gaining political brownie points out of every Muslim tragedy. Erdogan is a chronic warmonger, and his political. Do you hear this? Chronic warmonger. The Muslim and his political party, the Muslim Brotherhood, or Ikhwan Muslimin, is the one responsible for Islamophobia in the first place. Again, they created the term to stop the discussions. On those, you see that hand to the right of Putin? That is the For Rabia sign. That is a Muslim. That's a statement. He's a Muslim Brotherhood member. Now, for many of us who are in the Christian circles, they look at what Putin's what Erdogan has up, and they said, "Isn't that the goat's head?" Doesn't that make you guys think? I saw that. It's the first time I'd seen that on him. Maybe I saw it a few years ago when I was reading this stuff, but when I'm going back and I'm like looking at that, I had to do a double take. Is that what I think it is? It's got to make people think. Let me continue this article. It's very short, but if anyone has any issues with this claim, the author writes, then please feel free to see the photos on the internet from the many meetings between Palestinian Mufti Haj Amin al-Husseini and the leader of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler. And I got to go back over here. Sorry. All right. To put matters into context, Haj Amin al-Husseini was Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and he was also the leader of the Arab High Committee. Through his goals of pan-Arab unity and his denunciation of the Balfour Declaration may seem noble and heroic to some Muslims, his policies and methods are far too sinister. He's also said to have reached an understanding with the Nazi Party, second in command, SS chief Heinrich Himmler. I mean, this goes on and it starts, I want you to think of how dangerous this man is what it comes down to. If you start looking at who these people are, here's the For Rabia sign that you see in the Muslim Brotherhood, wherever they are. They use this sign to say, look, I'm part of the Ikhwan. Ikhwan is the word for brotherhood in Arabic. Okay, there we go again. Now, this is part of the stuff that bothers me. And it should bother you. When the American Muslim when the Erdogan was here, the American Muslim Brotherhood were submissive to this man. If Erdogan starts World War III, what's going to happen? Anybody have any thoughts? I mean, let's keep going. I'll show you some other pictures here that should make you think. Who's that standing next to Erdogan here? Does anybody know?
That's Muslim Brotherhood dude from CARE.
Yeah, that is Nihad Awad. Yeah. Let's keep going. Oh, and who's this?
Oh, a piece of shit.
Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar. Rashida Tlaib.
Rashid Tlaib. Ilhan Omar. Don't recognize that other lady though.
I think she is a candidate. She was a candidate for Congress, and she did not win that election. Nihad Awad, that also could be a relation of his or one of his representatives from CARE. All right. Keep thinking. His reach is international, and this man could be starting World War III. That is what could come from this. And they're not telling us this. No news station out there is telling us this. And I think that's what we need to be concerned about. Again, Turkey plays this game where they say, oh, I'm all powerful. You have to pay me to not do these things. That is the frustration I have. I look at what he's doing as dangerous. And this is what bothers me. I was on a Zoom call earlier this week. Actually, it was Monday, right before I interviewed Brad. And it is from an organization I respect. And the first speaker started talking about, well, we need to get Turkey more involved in the solution to the Russian issue. Really? That's not wise when you start to think about this, because Russia has, the issues there. Turkey's saying they're shutting the ports. You want Turkey involved, they're going to be fighting back and forth, and then we have World War III. So this speaker is either Brookings Institute and paid by the Muslim Brotherhood. It was, to me, that was scary. I got so disgusted I turned off the speaker, but I left. I was so disgusted. Let me read this part again. This comes from FP Insider Access. Erdogan's long arm in Europe. I cannot read the name right. Okay, here we go. The author's name, and I can't see it on the screen right now. Sorry about that. This is just an extremely important piece. It said internal Turkish governments documents revealing some of the dynamics were made public in 2017 by Peter Pilz, a prominent Austrian politician with a long career in the Green Party, who acquired leaked documents from sources he wouldn't disclose. Quote, we were surprised ourselves when we saw that Erdogan's Turkey had built a tightly meshed spy network from Japan to the Netherlands, from Kenya to the UK, Pilz said. In every single state, a huge spy network consisting of associations, clubs, and mosques is being employed via the embassy, the religious attaché, and the local intelligence officer in order to spy on Erdogan's critics around the clock. Authorities in several European countries publicly or privately speak of similar dynamics and have times detected plots to kidnap regime opponents on their soil. We've actually seen this happen, people. And okay, Turkish government's activities on European soil, whether aimed at espionage or at most of them, influence, are led by its embassies, which operate under diplomatic immunity. But I'm sorry? All right. But the embassies, as Pilz observed, oversee a wide network of non-governmental entities, which range from religious organizations to private businesses. Key cog is this mill machine, Milli Goris, the National Vision, founded in the late 60s by Erbakan, Erdogan's political mentor. Again, this is the Muslim Brotherhood. And, there's hundreds of thousands of people active in Germany in this. And again, the combination of Germans in Turkey, again, these are, Turks in Germany, that's what I meant. This is scary stuff. The reach is just huge. I think that we need to look at. This is huge stuff. Did you see the difference between Ukrainian refugees? Again, the big difference I would see, if I'm looking at any difference, it depends on when you have Michael. I'm just put Michael's question up here. Or is it okay? Did you see the difference between Ukrainian refugees and Afghans and Syrians? There is a difference between those who consider themselves followers of Islam as refugees and a person who considers themselves not a follower of Islam. The followers of Islam are required to be organized to stay separate. They do not allow themselves to join the culture that they're going to. They must stay separate. So that's part of the issue. Let me keep going on this issue here. Tatas goof up badly by naming pal of Islamist Erdogan as Air India CEO. This is from India, this news. And this came out February 24th. This is just last week. All right. And India has real issues with Islam, political Islam. They're following the APA standards where they can't say Islamic, they have to say Islamist. And this is part of my big issue with APA, with Associated Press standards. This is bad stuff. I mean, you sit here and you start looking at this. This is the scary stuff. Oh, now here's the thing we all need to be concerned about. Erdogan's messaging towards Iran. So if you get Turkey involved, and now we have Iran involved, guess who's trying to work a deal with Iran behind the curtain? while all of this stuff is being done, guess who is working a deal? Who knows about that? Anybody here know about the deal Biden has currently going?
Yeah. Oh, Biden.
Yeah, Biden has
Mhm.
a deal currently going on this issue. It is freaky scary. And just a second here, I got to move my mouse. It's freaky, freaky, scary stuff. And let me go back here, show you what I'm talking about. This is the thing. I got this morning. A story in American Thinker, and I have to say, this is the big, big thing that's not being shown. It is being hidden today, and that we all need to be. I would, if you can today, go to the American Thinker, thank this author. I was spellbound, and I'm going to share as much as I can from this, and I'll be writing this author an incredible thank you. And to the publisher, American Thinker, I will be writing that. This is by Andrea Widberg. Widberg. She writes, "A magician's best trick is misdirection." Again, this came out today. It says, while all eyes are on Ukraine, Biden's administration is selling out to Iran. So this is what they don't want you to see, people. A magician's best trick is misdirection. While he has the audience focused tightly on his left hand, his right hand is busy making the magic happen. Then he redirects the audience's attention and viola magic. The problem is that this same trick of misdirection can be used not for entertainment, but to hide perfidious political behavior. Basically, bad and evil political behavior. Unfortunately, if Gabriel Norhana, a former Iran official in the U.S. State Department, is believed, that's exactly what's happening today in Austria, where U.S. negotiations with Iran are taking place. Obama desperately wanted a deal with Iran. Keep that in mind. This is Obama's deal. This is where we know that it is Biden. It is not Biden. Keep listening. So much he wanted to deal with Biden. Biden wants this deal. I'm so bad that Biden, Obama negotiated one and ensured Iran was on a glide path to becoming a nuclear armed nation. Shamefully, Congress allowed him to enter into what was effectively a treaty without demanding that he submit it to Congress for approval per the United States Constitution. This was an illegal, unconstitutional act. And I love that they point that out. And the moment Trump entered office, he shut down Obama's bad deal. However, because Biden's presidency is nothing more than Obama's third term. This is why we call him Biden. A deal with Iran is currently back on the table. This is where where all of us Americans need to wake up. And that's where things are looking very grim for anyone within the ambit of Iran's terrorism, which means the whole world, with a special emphasis on Iran and with Israel and America, both of which are the recipients of Iran's most frequent genocidal threats. Melanie Phillips became aware of a long Twitter thread. Now, this is where this man comes in, by Gabriel Noranha, the aforementioned former State Department official on the Iran desk. His thread begins with the ominous words, "My former career at State Department, NSC, and EU colleagues are so concerned with the concessions being made by Rob Malley in Vienna that they've allowed me to publish some details of the coming deal in the hopes that Congress will stop what? The capitulation." This man on the right is Biden's man, making deals that are unconstitutional, unethical, and downright evil and destructive to the world. Who is Robert O'Malley, special envoy to Iran, a position he assumed on January 28th of 2021. Believe it or not, he's a Jewish leftist, Jewish commie, who served under both Clinton and Obama, and who devoutly wants America and Israel to get along with Hamas, as if that's possible. Pure genocidal anti-Semitic terrorist organization, the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood. For those of you who don't know, I'm just guessing the author doesn't know that. Again, this is a group so foul the Egyptian. No, Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood. This guy grew up in France, from which his father was expelled for being openly hostile to Western colonialism, and this is a father-like son issue. Now, I'm going to just keep going. I want to show you these tweets that they're talking about, and I just got to get my mouse in the right spot. Here we go. I'm going to, if you can, you see Biden with Putin, and I want to get to these tweets, and I hope they're big enough for people to read. It says, number one, my former career, State Department, EU colleagues are so concerned with concessions being made, Rob Malley in Vienna, that they allowed me to publish some details. Number two, what's happening in Vienna is a total disaster, one warned. The entire negotiations have been filtered, and this is the part that people need to listen to. Essentially run by Russian diplomat Mikhail Ulyanov. The concessions and other misguided policies have led 3 members of the U.S. negotiating team to leave. This is scary. This is what's not in the press. So the Russians are leading these negotiations. This is freaky scary. I don't have anything nice to say other than it is freaky scary. All right. And let's keep going here. And okay. Number 3. The long technical threat, but here's what you should know. The deal being negotiated, again, he says it's dangerous to our national security. It's illegal. It is illegitimate, and it in no way serves U.S. interests in either the short or the long term. Again, 4, the U.S. has promised to lift sanctions on some of the regime's most worst terrorists and torturers, leading officials in the regime's WMD infrastructure. He's going to get a lot more specific about this. This is just the scary stuff. And this is a former State Department official on the Iran desk. Number 5, he says Biden's team is preparing to rescind Supreme Leader's executive order 13876 as soon as this coming Monday. That's this Monday we're talking about, people. And lifting sanctions on nearly every one of the 112 people, entities sanctioned under it, even if they're sanctioned under other legal authorities. This is incredibly important to understand because he's saying the IRS, he's saying the Treasury Department can't have sanctions on these people and these groups. Wait to hear who some of them are. This is just going to, here's the first one they're going to mention by person, by name. Like Mohsen Razeh, who was involved in the 1994 AMIA bombing that killed 85 people in Argentina. He will be able to live free of sanctions next week if Malley proceeds. Responsible for the deaths of 85 people, and the U.S. is going to lift sanctions to please Iran?
Jeez. That's suicide.
This got me too. Under the sanctions, the U.S. will lift sanctions on IRGC Brigadier General Hossein Dagan, who led the IRGC forces in Lebanon and Syria when Hezbollah bombed the Marine compound and killed 241 U.S. service members in 1983. Try telling that to the Marines. Anybody here? Arms? Eric, you served. Doesn't that tick you off? I mean, this happened. You would have been. Were you in service by then? 1983.
He's not here, Paul.
Oh, I thought he was. Oh, okay.
He's listening, though.
Okay. I mean, 1983. I was a college kid, and I've met people who were there, who were going through horrible survivor's guilt. And I still remember the shock. This is what is being hidden from you today. This is what is not in the news. And this is why they're screaming Russia, Russia, Russia. They don't want you to know this information. There is other stuff which I can't mention, which will get me banned from YouTube. But I think this today what I'm covering today will. This is why I've been telling people, turn off the news. Go read your news. This stuff is shocking, scary, and so much worse. How about this one? Ali Akbar Valyati, senior advisor to Supreme Leader Khomeini, who was charged in the Argentina homicide for the 1994 bombing as one of the ideological masterminds behind the attack. Again, that killed 85 people. And they're going to he's going to be able to get sanctions lifted on him. Why are these terrorists having sanctions lifted? And how is that good for America? And why is Russia asking for these things? Again, it's not just Iran. It's Russia asking for these things. That's the thing to think about. I mean, this is kind of scary. Red, if you want to comment, please do. I mean, this is scary, scary stuff. And let me go back here. Okay. Again, we have another one. Sanctions would be lifted on Khomeini's personal slush funds, known as banyads, including Astan Quds Razavi, an execution of Imam Khomeini's order, which confiscated houses and billions from political dissidents. So now there's no penalty for those who oppress the masses in Iran. That's what this is saying. Sanctions would be lifted on the Banyad Mostazafan, a massive conglomerate that systematically confiscated property from Jews and Baha'is after 1979. So here's another one. Important to note, the Supreme Leader's Office executive order was not at all related to Iran's nuclear problem and the removal of these sanctions. So again, these are things that are being given that have nothing to do. Again, these are extra things. They're being given. It's free. We're getting nothing in return. They're giving free carte blanche to these terrorists in Iran. Again, and most of our team, 3 members of our team have left, the American team. They're so disgusted by what's happening there, they're sharing information to make it stop. Again, this came out this morning with American Thinker. And again, if you can go and thank the great author and share, or go to Twitter and thank Gabriel for this information, please do. I will be thanking him. Here's his 13th note. There's more sanctions that will be lifted in huge swaths of the regime's economic and financial aims. Close to 40 entities that support the Iranian terror, repression, and WMD infrastructure that were sanctioned before. They're going to have all those sanctions lifted. See, the Treasury Department's statements, their sanctions are going to be lifted by order of an executive order. Here's another statement on that.
What's WMD?
Weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Okay. They're lifting sanctions on the arms of Mer Eqtasad Network and Banyad Ta'avon Bazij, which directly funds the Bazij resistance force that recruits and trains child soldiers. Really, just the kind of thing you want to do. You want to lift sanctions on recruiters of child soldiers. I mean, this doesn't get much sicker. I mean, this is where I say, it's bad enough Biden isn't in charge, but to allow these things, there's no one sicker that we know of that has been behind these things than Obama. This is, Darcy, you're not. Darcy, you just said it. Let me put this up for people to see. She is 100% right. It's an endorsement of child abuse to lift these sanctions. It is entirely, that is entirely it. All right. It's just, I find nothing legal about this. every individual and entity that was desanctioned under JCPOA's Annex 2 Attachment 3 will have sanctions stripped again, even though close to 100 of them were later sanctioned for terrorism. This is just scary. How about the Gavin Bank? He says, for example, it's sanctioned under human rights authorities November 2018 for involvement supporting Iranian law enforcement forces that tortured and drowned Afghans. Well, that doesn't matter anymore. They'll be free. This stuff is shocking and abhorrent. I mean, I don't have another statement for it. SEPA Bank, sanctioned in 2007 as the financial linchpin of Iran's missile procurement network. JCPOA lifted sanctions against the Attachment 3 list under the guise that they were nuclear-related sanctions, but now Mali and company are effectively trying to codify their permanent exemptions from sanctions, even if they are complicit in gross violations of human rights. This is something that the United States of America, that Biden is currently in. Again, it can't be Biden because the man has dementia. It's his handlers. And this is just disgusting. I don't have another statement. This is why I say we're not long. I mean, a lot of what we're seeing happen is scary. And this is what I have been saying all along. We have to be careful because what's being hidden from us is scary, scary, scary stuff. Sanctions will be lifted from the Central Bank of Iran, the National Development Fund. These are the guys who provide billions of dollars to the IRGC, the Al-Quds Force, and Hezbollah. These guys still fund terrorism. So they're going to override the Treasury Department's stoppage of financing freezing of funds that have to do and sanctions against terrorism. That's what they're currently engaging in. These are not legal acts. They're actually against American law. CBI and NDF were sanctioned after Iran brazenly attacked Saudi Arabia in 2019. So, I mean, again, they're going to violate federal laws to do this deal. And this is as they're going to try and put this through the UN again, I think the person in charge, any people involved need to be charged with treason. That's my personal belief, and I will continue to state that because these are acts of treason because they violate the U.S. Constitution. They violate U.S. law.
Amen.
Also to be lifted, sanctions of the National Iranian Oil Company, the National Iranian Tanker Company. And again, these are the places that fund terrorism. The Quds Force was responsible for killing hundreds of thousands of Syrians and for the death of at least 603 Americans in Iraq between 2003 and 2011. This NAOC, NITC, sanctioned under counterterrorism authorities. The State Department had no legal basis to rescind these sanctions on the central bank. Again, this is all illegal. This is what Gabriel Noronha, I want to say thank you to him for, again, we all should go to Twitter and thank this man. We're almost to the end of this. Speaking of lawyers, states lawyers are saying they're to be working on very creative ways to try and bypass Congress's right to review. Are you catching this? They're saying they're basically going to go to the UN like Obama did, which was an illegal act, and he should have been brought up on high crimes and misdemeanors because that was an act of treason. It was unconstitutional. There was no way for him to do what he was doing and to call it legal. He's 28. He says Mali's attempt to remove sanctions against the IRGC. Mali was initially rebuffed by the interagency after he tried to get them to let him offer the removal of sanctions. And this still hasn't stopped him. This is scary stuff. And Eric is back. Okay. This is freaky, freaky, scary stuff. I I mean, like I said, I found this morning, and it just fit with the theme today. And I've been looking and trying to find out what's being hidden. And to me, this is the big overarching thing. To hear that Turkey could be bringing us into World War III, and if Turkey goes in, then they're partnering and they're working with Iran. What the? This is, yeah. We need to start thinking about where our countries, where the people in office, where their loyalties are. I mean, you can see this right here. This is so scary. And he says one of the last issues still on the table in Vienna. Iranians apparently have not accepted Mali's offer because they want an unconditional removal of the IRGC's FTO is Foreign Terrorist Organization designation. But even if if that has to be removed in order for sanctions to be lifted, okay, and this is what's really, really scary. We have to think about these things, and this is the stuff that people are hiding from you, and it's, I mean, Eric, I had a question earlier. I know you're here with us now. I don't know if you were serving during the bombing of the barracks in Beirut. Were you in service then? I know he's here. He might just be listening.
Yes. Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in basic training, as a matter of fact, when that happened. So.
Oh my gosh! How do you feel about those sanctions being lifted?
Where you going? What? Hold on, Paul.
Okay. I think this is actually important stuff because I think every military man on the planet today, he has to come back later. Every military man on the planet today should be contact every. Yeah, you think about this. Every man in the free world should be saying no. This can't be allowed. This cannot be allowed. This is. Yeah, thank you for coming back. All right, I'm going to put us all up here. Yeah. This is freaky, scary stuff. I mean, I can go back. There's just a few more of this, and I'll just put. Here's the next one I have coming up. This one's scary. It says, for all these concessions, we haven't gotten anything at all from the Iranians. The JCPOA, the JCPOA is the organization that's making this deal. Sunset have not been extended at all. This is the Obama agreement. Okay, these deals have not been restricted. Some restrictions, like the UN arms embargo, have already expired. All the meaningful restrictions will expire in the next 9 years. So this will allow Iran to become a nuclear weapon power. And that's scary. 33 and 34, Iran won't make any concessions on its ballistic missile activity. So they don't do anything. They just get all this free stuff. This is the stuff to think about. Iran's set to get a massive windfall again. Access to cash. This is why we know it's Biden. It's not Biden. It is bummer. Iran is set to get a massive windfall of access to cash, estimated in around 90 billion in foreign exchange reserves, and then another 50 to 55 billion in extra reserve each year from higher oil petrochemical exports with no restrictions on where it will be spent. This is this is a country that endorses terrorism. I mean, and here again this is the last of it. These are named people. I do recommend going to Twitter, looking for Gabriel Noronha, GLNORONHA is his Twitter handle. This is really, really scary stuff. There is my best news today is a strange bit of news out of Iran. And I say a strange bit of news because we don't normally have good news out of Iran.
It's Mark? No fucking way.
Oops. Language.
Oops.
Sorry.
That's what happens.
Yeah. All right. Believe it or not, there was good news out of Iran today. And this comes from the Christian Post, and this kind of shocked me, I'll admit. I'm just gonna put us all on. Here we go. Show this. I saw this again. This is an article this morning. I wanted to share something positive besides the scripture that I share when I start. But here we go. Iran acquits 9 Christian converts of acting against national security in a landmark decision. From the Christian Post, this came out this morning. And just to see if I can push this down, by Samuel Smith, the deputy managing editor of the Christian Post. Basically, this article says that 9 Christians who were charged with violating national security for doing what? Going to church? Holding church? That they're being freed. They're being allowed to be free, to practice their faith without any repercussions. Okay. This, I believe, was a required to do in here for some of these deals that they're getting. This is too scary stuff, people. I mean, I'm at a loss for words as to how can we actually call any of this good. I think that was a concession. I don't see. This is the stuff I'm scared about, that they're not telling the average American today. So I'm gonna ask people today, please, please, please have people watch this broadcast. I'm gonna break this in to smaller pieces for the YouTube, so you can just watch one or the other. I'm gonna put Brad's interview separate, and I'm gonna put this section separate. Any comments on what you've heard today, people? If you have time, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'll put the if anybody wants to post the invite in the chat room, anybody's allowed. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this today. What you've heard.
Well, I am thinking that what we're watching is a distraction with the whole Russian-Ukraine thing. There's a lot more going behind it that we're not aware of. I don't see the Ukraine-Russian thing as a war. I think it's certain groups of people, certain facilities that are being taken out strategically. I have seen or read in certain channels that I watch where the news has been using fake video and fake pictures that are not really dealing with Ukraine. You know, like buildings getting blown up. One of them actually, I believe, was said it was actually a building and it was Israel who had bombed the building. So it had nothing to do with Ukraine.
I think the issue with that is the banner issue I saw. The bombing I saw of like one place. I'm not sure whether to call this a war or a conflict. I think Brad Johnson's point was that Putin basically has all of the Ukraine he wants. And, you know, you'll see the Ukrainians are digging trenches and stuff now. But if Putin doesn't want to go any farther, those trenches are useless. And I think that's the point. And when I say that, I'm looking at what we can see right now, let's expect within the next week or two, Biden will make some great declaration of success, in negotiations here. But you take a look at what he's doing. I mean, this is just scary stuff. I'm kind of mind blown at all of what we're seeing that's hidden from us. I've been looking for these things. There's many things that have come out from the FDA. There are many things that come out in respect to COVID, which I can't cover. I'll be banned off YouTube because Google owns YouTube and Google doesn't want the truth out on these issues. I'm not willing to get banned just yet. Yes. Now, Taiwan, I believe this was my discussion with Brad, is I personally thought that when Taiwan, when China was going to take Taiwan, it was going to be negotiated in the deal before the taking of Ukraine. And as Brad pointed out, the Chinese and the Russians were already meeting before Putin took his portion of Ukraine. That to me verifies what I thought. Now, Brad thinks this is going to happen in another year. My thoughts are that, I don't have the information that Brad does. My thoughts are that this may happen earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes, if the Americans decide to if Biden decides to involve U.S. troops with Turkey fighting on, if Turkey fires on, which I pray to God does not happen. If Turkey fires on the Russians, World War III will start. I just have to keep praying that doesn't happen.
And Biden said it will be nuclear. Or at least the people that are underneath him.
Yeah.
He has no choice.
I don't see Turkey. I don't see Russia doing anything like that. I see Russia believing they can just step on them and do whatever they want. It's the Russian belief structure of superiority. You hear of the Islamic supremacy belief. There is a Russian supremacy belief. And, they basically believe we can run and step on you. And that's what we have seen since we were young. It will actually be a sad, sorry statement. If that happens, we will immediately see the Russians come in. I think we will immediately see some horrible things happen, such as I think we will see China run and take Taiwan immediately if the concept of World War III starts. I think it'll be immediate. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, is for that first shot by a Turkish soldier. That could be it. Again, here's the thing to think about. If Turkey gets involved in a war, what does that mean for us in respect to who is here and involved and has given what we know to be a Bea, which is they have devoted themselves to and subservience to Erdogan. We saw that with Nihad Awad. We saw that with Ilhan Omar. These are scary, scary statements. What happens if that shot is fired? I hesitate to think about this. It bothers me severely. And then to add into that complication, what's actually happening now is those deals with Iran. And who's negotiating those deals? Russia. So is this all smoke and mirrors, this Ukrainian thing, so Russia can get these things done for Iran? What does Russia get out of this deal? Where do you think Russia's getting some of their oil? Iran. Are they getting a lower price on oil? Absolutely. Do you know where we're buying our oil from while they're getting oil from Iran? We're
Russia?
getting oil from Russia. So this is the scary, scary stuff of what's happening. So Russia's getting deals all around. They're benefiting. And who's winning? It's not the United States. It's not Europe. And, you know, this is a far darker presentation than I want to. I just want to make people aware of what's factually true, what can be proven. And this is a discussion of what could be coming down the road. I don't want to be the guy that says, look, we told you a month ago, we told you a year ago, which is what we just did in May. And last May, Brad was on the show and he told us Russia's going to take Ukraine. Did it happen? Absolutely. Is it finished? And this is the interesting part. Brad is saying that Russia has exactly what they want. They don't want any more of the Ukraine, so that battle's basically over. So it'll be interesting to watch and see how accurate this is. I personally think he's 100% accurate.
Well, they did wipe out, 8 U.S. biolabs?
I don't have any evidence for that at this point. I've heard of the claim for that. I can't find any. I'm not saying that they don't exist or that they do exist. I just don't have any evidence for that at this point. In the stuff that I listen to, I just have not. I mean, I listen to all sorts of things. I've heard those statements, but I have not yet seen anybody I've heard putting those out in Twitter, in Getter, and wherever. I have not seen any proof of any of it, not even a picture or a citation. That's where I'm getting concerned. So whether those are, I mean, if those exist, those people should be hung out to dry as violating the U.S. Constitution. They should have anyone involved should have treason charged against them if they exist. My thoughts are right now is there is no proof for either, so we can't really make a statement that it's true or not. And I'm waiting for the day that we can find out either way on that before I try to make a statement. I'm still curious about Putin's going through Chernobyl. To me, that still does not make sense. I think most military men would be questioning that. I forgot to ask Brad about that, what he thought about that. I think I mentioned it to him before we started interviewing the interview, but he had so much to share. I was lucky to get him the time I did. We've been trying to hook up. I think we can have him back more. Again, he's a friend. It's been nice to meet him in person and to get to know him a little bit. I do, but some of this stuff is just shocking. Eric, did you want to say something?
Paul?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to add the move to go through Chernobyl, and I'm not exactly sure how much radioactivity is still there. However, if, as a soldier, you have personal radiological testing, or what's the word I'm looking for? Where you can
You have gear.
measure the gear, but I mean I can't remember what they used to call it, but I mean it was something where you can measure the amount of total dosage that you've been exposed to. So if they are moving through someplace like that, I would expect that would be some type of standard issue, if not at the personal level, at least at the unit level, where the unit would be able to measure the amount of exposure to the total dosage. And then at the same time, I wouldn't put it past him to push people through there regardless of the amount of dosage or radioactivity that's still going there. I wasn't even aware that there was still a hot zone that people couldn't even pass through. I understand that you wouldn't really want to raise a family there, but I did not know that it was like a no-go zone.
It's still, my understanding is that it's still pretty much a no man's land. From the few I've talked to and I mean, there are people who still do reside there, and they're not doing well. But other than that, I don't have enough than what I've had as far as what you're talking. Yeah, repent. You are talking something like a Geiger counter. Um, Also, to remember that Brad did mention who was taking people out is that Putin had hired Muslims to be the assassins, and that was interesting. They were not Russian experts. These are, I believe, what we would have called the Chechen jihadis, basically as the assassins to take out the political leaders. And that, I mean, that again, he has the information. I don't. So I tend to trust everything he says. I listen to, having met him and listened to some of his personal stories. I sit there and I'm thankful this is a man on our side, because he sees he can see the picture in a way that most of us can't. And, he is working towards changing our intelligence collection. I guess what I mean by that is the way we currently do intelligence, it is wrong. We have too many limits, and we have too many what's the right word to put this as? Too many restrictions, and we're not doing this in the proper manner. Brad talks about it. You basically have to be at war to learn some of these skills, and we are not at war. And the people who were at war, who understood some of these skills, these things are no longer being taught, as they were restricted basically under three presidents: George W., Clinton, and Obama. So we are in trouble intelligence-wise. George W. did a lot to limit things, and I blame him for a lot of this. So that's my personal take, and I've lost any respect I had for him after studying for intelligence analysis, to realize that he is the man who caused us not to look at Islam as a problem. I still am disgusted by that. Any last thoughts, Eric and Dr. Kufar, anybody else who wants to comment?
Well, I think what's his name? I think I told you Robert Steele shared the same idea as far as the CIA, that our intelligence was pretty much useless nowadays, and he wanted to reform it. That's why he had this idea. I'm not quite sure exactly how it would work, but he was talking about an open source.
Open source is something. It's like if you use the internet, you have open source. Open source is anything that you can get for free just by not having access to anything limited. So open source is a newspaper. Open source is using the internet. Anything that doesn't require a clearance. So that's what open source is. Whenever you turn on your computer and go to the internet, you're using open source intelligence. And I've been doing that for years. I created my first social networking analysis by using open source, and I concluded who was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood at that point, and found out I was doing it accurately. I found out I was doing something I didn't know what I was doing. I look at this. This again. I think that sadly we could be heading to World War III. Erdogan is a warmonger. And I don't see Putin as, again, I can be wrong here. I don't see Putin as the warmonger. I totally believe what Brad Johnson said here is that Putin saw this territory as his, and he just took possession of it. And, that's it. He's happy. He's done. And we can expect Biden to make some concession, or the Europeans to make some concession in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, they're going to look good and say this about them. If you see that, you heard it here first. that's something to think about. We were right 8 months. Well, we're almost a year. We were right almost a year ago about Ukraine. Will we be right about World War III? Will
Let's
we?
pray that one doesn't
Oh.
happen.
Yes.
That's one that
Yeah.
we could be wrong on. And
I want to be wrong in all of
Right.
these things. I want to. There's nothing here that I want to be right about. Will China take Taiwan back? I pray to God, no. I really don't want to see that. Is there salvation possible out of all of this? I say I'm looking at. I think the thing we probably need to pray for today is, and I'm running out of time, but I think the thing we need to pray for today is the removal, not of Putin, but the removal of Erdogan. That the people in Turkey would rise up and remove him. I think that is key. I'm not sure who's better. I couldn't tell you. I would say just trust God to take care of it. We got to keep praying that the right people get in the right positions. That's I think is all important. There was an article today by in respect to Taiwan by Epoch Times, which I found fascinating. Let me share this real quick. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm going to tell people I like the Epoch Times. It's worth paying for. So if you do not currently subscribe to Epoch Times, I'm just going to recommend it to you, and I'm going to share my screen on this particular one. This article, I think, is important. Now that you've heard us talk about it, Beijing will invade Taiwan sooner rather than later. This is something Trump predicted today. I'm sorry, he said this yesterday. And again, I got it from Brad Johnson yesterday. He was saying it would probably happen in a year and a half, within a year, maybe next year to a year and a half. Trump is predicting it'll happen earlier. I don't want to see it either way. I do not desire to see that at all. Will it happen? I would very much like to be wrong. Some of these things are just scary. I don't have another way of putting it.
Well, see, here's the thing. We don't really have to have like a nuclear war in the conventional sense. All Russia or China has to do is 1 or 2 nukes 300 miles above, let's say, Kansas. Goodbye, United States. That's it. Now, of course, there will be retaliation. That's going to be a problem.
Well, I don't see either one of these countries desiring to be at war with us. The problem is that we are so deeply involved in NATO that we are required to act, and we are so deeply involved with Taiwan we are required to act. It would be a two-front war again, where it would be. This is where I'm saying it would be a world war if we get into this. These are scary, scary things to think about. We need to, again, people need to pray that World War III does not start. This is a time for praying. So I guess I'm going to end this show with a prayer. If you would join me, please. Lord Jesus, Lord, we just ask that you would be the one in charge, Lord, that you would cause peace upon this land, Lord, that you would remove those from office that have dementia, that you would remove those from office who want evil, and Lord, that you would destroy those leaders who desire harm for your people, Lord. We ask, Lord, that you would protect every last human being on this earth, Lord, that you would take care of us all. In your name, Lord Jesus, amen. God bless you all. I want to say thank you for joining me. And
Yeah, thanks for having us.
this was a tough show to do, because having learned all these things and been doing all this research, it's scary stuff. Do watch Canadians. There's some news stories on Canada that is also being hidden. Look at what's happening in Quebec. Quebec just did a lockdown without any required scientific proof that it would be necessary. So the Canadian government in Quebec is actually doing some infighting about the current lockdown in Quebec. So that's important. So who's forcing the lockdown? Pay attention, keep looking. Let me see if I can recommend. Hold on, I'll tell you which, where you can get that news source. I subscribe to a large number of news sources. Let me pull that up. And I got that from, I got that from, oh boy. And I think I have so many news sources. You start watching. Look what happened in Quebec. That's today, people. Look what happened in Quebec yesterday and today, I believe it is. Pay attention and keep praying. That's the best thing you can do. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. God bless.
All right. God bless. Great show.